Hi there. When people talk about the death of kings, vivid images come to mind: bloody coups, betrayals, conspiracies, and tragedies worthy of Shakespeare's plays. But real death, slow, sticky, stripped of heroism and almost everything human, rarely makes it into the chronicles. What if a king dies not by the sword or poison, but simply from illness, helplessly dissolving in his own body while those around him look on with indifference? But before you settle in, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is for you. I'm really curious to see where everyone's tuning in from. Now get comfortable. We're about to begin. You wake up again, and you wish you had not. There is no such thing as sunrise in this castle. The morning light is a gray fog, barely oozing through the narrow slit of your window. The stone wall, 3 feet thick, is cold as a corpse, and your breath escapes your lips like a ghost, mixing with the musty air. The bed is hard. The straw pokes through the linen. You feel each lump beneath your spine, each ridge pressing into your skin. No matter how many times you have lain here, your body never grows used to it. You try to sit up, but your limbs protest. They ache, as if you have walked for miles in the night, though you have barely moved. You look at your hands and see the veins rising blue beneath your pale skin, and for a moment you imagine yourself already dead, embalmed and preserved, waiting for history to notice you. But you are not dead, not yet. You are Edward, King of England, and every joint reminds you that you are still here. The castle is never quiet. Somewhere in the distance, a door slams. Footsteps echo through corridors that seem to multiply in the darkness. Rats scuttle behind the walls, feasting on things you would rather not name. Servants whisper in corners, their voices as thin as the light. You hear all of this because your room is too close to the kitchens, and too far from anywhere that feels like home. Not that you have ever known what home feels like. You are a king, which means you are a guest in every room, even your own. You remember yesterday, but not because it was different. Yesterday was the same as the day before and the day before that. You woke up in this bed, stared at this same stone, coughed the same cough that has become your companion. It is a wet cough, sticky and deep, and each time you do it, you wonder if you will cough up your lungs. You think you would like that, just to see them, pink and glistening, proof that something inside you is still alive. The servants come, shuffling in, with their heads bowed, careful not to look you in the eye. You are their king, but you are also a burden. They bring you stale bread, a piece of cheese, a cup of watered wine. You chew slowly, the bread gritty between your teeth. Everything tastes of mold. The cheese is hard as bone. You force it down, not because you are hungry, but because it is expected. Hunger is a luxury you no longer understand. Hunger belongs to the healthy. The chamber is drafty, no matter how many blankets you pile on top of yourself. You wrap them around you like armor, but the cold creeps in anyway. You remember when you first arrived in this place, when you were younger and stronger, when you thought the world could not touch you. The world has touched you. It has left its mark. You feel it in your bones, the slow rot, the decay that comes from living too long in a place that was never meant to be lived in. A priest comes in the afternoon, as he does every day, muttering prayers that sound more like curses. He sprinkles holy water over your head and asks if you have confessed your sins. You think of the sins you have committed: pride, anger, the quiet hatred you have for everyone around you. You confess nothing. Confession is for those who believe in absolution. You believe only in the stone, the cold, and the endless damp. You wonder how many more mornings you will wake up here. You count them in your head, but the number is always the same: too many. There is a chill in your chest that never goes away, a heaviness that weighs down your breath. You listen to the silence after the priest leaves, and for a moment, you imagine that the castle itself is holding its breath, waiting for you to die. You close your eyes, but you do not sleep. Instead, you drift in and out of memory, wondering what it would be like to wake up somewhere else. You dream of a bed that is not made of straw, a room that is not made of stone. But when you open your eyes again, nothing has changed. You are still here, wrapped in dampness, surrounded by the echoes of a life that does not feel like your own. You are Edward, you are king, and you are already tired. You wake again, or perhaps you never really slept. The damp in your bones feels heavier today, as if the stones themselves have crept into your body overnight and settled inside your chest. There is a taste of iron in your mouth, metallic and bitter. Your tongue feels swollen. You run it over your teeth and wonder if they will one day drop out, one by one, like soldiers fleeing a lost battle. There is a persistent itching under your skin. At first, you thought it was just a flea, a common inconvenience in these halls, but the itching has spread, now winding its way up your forearms, behind your knees, along your back. You scratch without thinking, hoping to reach whatever invisible beast is burrowing through your flesh, but you find nothing but angry red marks. Your skin is beginning to look as mottled and tired as your thoughts. You try to blame the servants. Their hygiene is suspect. You see the filth under their nails when they pass you food, and you cannot help but wonder what they leave behind on the platters, what tiny creatures hide in the cracks of their skin. But deep down, you know it is not their fault. This is the kingdom of filth, and you are its monarch. You cough again. The sound is different now, wetter, a slow and bubbling groan that seems to echo up from the bottom of your lungs. You wonder what lives there, deep within you, where no healer's hands can reach. In the old stories, people speak of demons and curses, but you know better. Your enemies are not devils with horns, but things far smaller, things you cannot see. They slip into your body through every touch, every breath, every crumb of food. You remember the physician, a grave man with thin lips and clever eyes. He told you, quite solemnly, that the humors in your body were out of balance. Too much black bile, not enough phlegm, or was it the other way around? He bled you, then gave you a potion that tasted of bitter roots and spoiled apples. He seemed satisfied, as if the act of prescribing was a victory in itself. You drank, obedient as always, but the taste lingered, foul and lingering, long after the promise of cure had faded. Still, you can feel the invisible enemies marching on. You imagine them as an army, tiny foot soldiers tunneling through your flesh, gnawing at your sinews, storming your veins. You picture them celebrating victories in the dark recesses of your body, raising invisible banners, chanting in languages you will never understand. You think, briefly, that you would have made a poor general, for you have never truly won a battle, not even against yourself. The fever comes in waves. At times, you shiver so violently that your teeth chatter, and the servants bring you more blankets, more cloaks, piling them on top of you until you feel smothered. Other times, the heat surges through your blood, and you strip off everything, desperate for cool air. Your body is no longer yours. It is a theater for invisible dramas, a battlefield where you are always the losing side. There is a rash forming on your chest now, a red and angry map that seems to grow larger by the day. The physician calls it a mark of the Lord's displeasure, though you suspect the Lord has better things to do. Still, the servants cross themselves when they change your sheets, whispering prayers and moving with the exaggerated caution of those who fear contagion. You wonder if the others in the castle know how sick you are. You wonder if they care. In the old days, a sick king was a weakness, an invitation to treachery. You imagine your stepmother plodding in shadowy corridors, her eyes bright with ambition. You imagine your half brother dreaming of your throne, hoping for a cough that never stops. Even your own body is a traitor now. You look out the window, the only one in your room, barely wider than your palm. You can see the gray world outside, the muddy courtyard, the chickens pecking at frozen earth. You envy them in a way, their simple hunger, their uncomplicated lives. None of them know what it is to be invaded from within, to fight a war that no one else can see. The itching grows worse at night. You lie awake and feel the invisible enemies writhing beneath your skin, a crawling unease that never lets you rest. Sometimes you think you can hear them, an orchestra of scratching, biting, feasting, somewhere just beneath the surface. You wish you could tear yourself open and evict them all, but you are too tired, too weak. The priest comes again, reciting the same old prayers, sprinkling water that does nothing but make your hair damp. You ask him, as a joke, if prayer can cure an army you cannot see. He looks at you, grave and silent, and says nothing. You are not surprised. You fall asleep at last, scratching at your arm until you bleed. You dream of invisible things, crawling over you, feasting, multiplying. When you wake, nothing has changed. You are still here, still fighting, still losing. Your enemies are many, and they have all the time in the world. You lie in bed, a reluctant monument to all the medical wisdom the 10th century has to offer. Your body aches, your mind aches, and still the day insists on dragging you through its bleak motions. The door opens, and in shuffles your physician, a man whose robes look more expensive than his education. He bows, not too deeply, and immediately launches into the ritual of hope and delusion called treatment. First, he inquires about your humors, as if your blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile are all sitting up inside you, raising their hands politely when called. He taps your chest, listens to your cough, frowns as if he expected something more regal from a king's illness. You watch him, skeptical, exhausted, almost curious. He consults a battered book, the pages warped and stained by 100 desperate consultations. The wisdom of Galen, mangled by a dozen translations and misunderstandings. You are offered warm wine, steeped in herbs, whose names sound suspiciously like weeds from the moat. Sage, hyssop, wormwood, they smell medicinal, which is to say, they smell like regret and bad choices. You drink because refusing would make you seem weak. The wine does nothing for the pain, but for a moment you forget how cold the bed is. Then the poultices arrive. One is a foul-smelling paste made from onions and goose fat, slathered across your chest. Another is a waxy disc of beeswax and dried moss pressed against the back of your neck. The physician tells you to lie very still, as if movement will scare away the healing spirits. A servant ties a toad, yes, a toad, inside a pouch and hangs it from your bedpost. You ask if the toad will survive this ordeal. No one answers. Next comes the leeching, the bleeding, the perpetual draining of your vitality. The physician tells you that sickness is like a stagnant pond, best cleared by the removal of excess. He produces a small knife, elegant in a morbid way, and asks you to bare your arm. You comply because you are too tired to refuse, and besides, what is a little more pain? The blood wells up, dark and sluggish, and you wonder if he is taking more than just the sickness with him. The bandages are not clean. They smell faintly of mold, and you wonder how many other patients they have wrapped before you. The wound is covered, and the physician assures you that relief will come soon. You are not reassured. You remember all the times you have been assured of things: peace, loyalty, love, and how rarely those assurances have held. Your diet is now a battleground. The physician insists on broths, stews, and thick porridges, all tasteless, all boiling hot. He scolds you for refusing to eat, claiming that even a king must eat to survive. You consider arguing that kings must also enjoy their meals, but you lack the energy. You force down mouthfuls, feeling each swallow scrape your sore throat. Food used to be a pleasure. Now it is just another demand on your diminishing strength. There are other remedies too. At sunset, a wise woman from the village is summoned, her hands rough, her eyes hard. She chants in a language you do not know, ties red threads around your wrists, burns herbs that fill the room with smoke and make your eyes water. She lays her hands on your chest, presses down, and mutters about evil spirits and jealous neighbors. You are certain she means well, but as she leaves, the ache in your bones feels precisely the same as before. The castle smells now of onion, sweat, and the ghost of burned rosemary. You are surrounded by relics of faith and science, bottles of vinegar, bowls of salt, crosses hung at every angle. The air is thick with effort, desperation, and the stifling sense that none of this will matter. No one says so, of course. They speak of recovery, of God's will, of the wisdom of the ancients. You nod because that is what is expected, because kings are supposed to inspire hope, even if only by pretending to possess it themselves. At night, you hear the physician in the corridor whispering with the servants. You know what they are saying, that the king is getting worse, that the remedies are not working, that perhaps something else should be tried. You imagine yourself as a patient in a great experiment, each day a new ingredient, each symptom a puzzle to be solved with increasingly bizarre solutions. You are not a king here. You are a collection of ailments, a living catalog of failures. You wish sometimes that they would all leave you alone, that you could lie in silence, wrapped in blankets, and let the sickness run its course without interference. But there is always another poultice, another prayer, another experiment in human endurance. As you drift into another feverish doze, you wonder if any of this would have been different if you had been born a peasant. Fewer poultices, perhaps, fewer witnesses, maybe then, at least, you could have been ill in peace. You barely remember how it began. The fever slides in as a thief in the night, slipping its cold hands into your flesh when no one is looking. At first, you shiver, not an uncommon thing in this castle, where the stones sweat and the wind laughs at your attempts to shut it out. But then the shivering becomes shaking, and you are forced to wrap yourself in every blanket and cloak available until you are more cocoon than king. The servants notice. They exchange glances, the kind that last a little too long, as if your condition is a puzzle they are being asked to solve without proper instructions. The physician arrives, shuffling with his usual mixture of authority and helplessness, declaring that the fever is a sign your body is fighting corruption. He prescribes more wine, this time boiled and thick with honey. Though the taste turns your stomach, you drink anyway, because refusing would only encourage another round of leeching, and you have grown tired of being bled for science. By afternoon, your skin is hot to the touch. The world outside your bed blurs and stretches as if you are seeing it through a window covered in frost. Shadows move on the walls, but when you look directly at them, they melt away. Sometimes you are certain someone is standing at the foot of your bed, a priest perhaps, or an enemy come to claim you, but when you blink, you see only the damp stone and the flicker of candlelight. Sleep, when it comes, is not the gentle thing you remember from childhood. Now it is a tumble into strange, hot depths, a plunge into dreams so vivid you wake up gasping. In one, you are running through endless corridors, chased by faceless men with blades made of flame. In another, you are floating above your own bed, watching as the servants pick at your bones, their eyes shining in the dark. You sweat through every layer. The sheets are soaked by morning, and the smell of your illness, sweet, rotten, unmistakable, fills the chamber. You cannot escape it. The servants try to mask it with bundles of dried lavender, but the stink of fever wins every time. You begin to recognize your own scent, the smell of a body turning on itself, betraying itself cell by cell. You lose track of days. Time collapses into a series of moments. The physician's soft hands pressing your forehead, the priest muttering a prayer at the door, the slow drip of sweat from your temples. Sometimes you hear voices in the corridor and wonder if they are speaking about you or simply pretending you do not exist. It is difficult to care. The fever draws a curtain between you and the world, a heavy, burning veil. Food becomes impossible. Even the thinnest broth makes your stomach clench. The servants bring new dishes each day, hopeful, but the effort of lifting a spoon feels monumental. Your mouth is dry, your tongue thick as wool. You try to drink water, but it tastes of dust. The physician suggests watered wine instead, convinced that its humors are more balanced. You wonder if you will ever taste anything else again. On the worst nights, you hallucinate. You see faces in the ceiling, your father, your enemies, saints whose names you have forgotten. They speak to you in riddles, their mouths moving in slow, exaggerated shapes. Sometimes they seem to beckon you closer. You try to reply, but your throat is raw and the words will not come. You wake shivering, convinced that someone has just left your room, though the door is closed and no footprints mar the floor. The physician's confidence wavers. He tries new remedies, cold compresses, bitter syrups, even a poultice of mashed leeks and lard pressed to your forehead. Nothing works. Each morning, he asks how you feel, and each morning you invent a new answer. Better, worse, the same. It makes no difference. The truth is that you no longer expect to improve. The fever is your new king, and you are its subject. Sometimes, when you are most delirious, you wonder if you are being punished. Perhaps you offended God, or perhaps it is just the natural consequence of being alive in a time when death is never far away. The priest assures you that suffering brings you closer to sainthood. You try to believe him, but all you feel is the burning in your blood, the restless flicker behind your eyes. You realize, in a moment of clarity, that you have not seen the sun in many days. The world outside your tiny window remains a blur of gray, the seasons slipping by without you. You close your eyes and imagine a warm summer day, a field of green, the sound of laughter. But the image fades, drowned by the specter of fever that clings to you, jealous and unrelenting. You are not sure how much longer you can bear it. But then you are not sure you have any choice. You once thought boredom belonged to idle children, to lazy monks in cold cloisters, to men who had the luxury of waiting for something to happen. You did not think it was possible to be bored while dying. But now you know. There is a boredom in illness that is deeper, heavier, and more oppressive than any you have known as king. Your world shrinks to the dimensions of your bed, the crumbling plaster above your head, the mildewed stones beneath your feet. Every morning you wake to the same thin patch of light on the wall, the same drip of water from the ceiling, the same sound of servants mumbling outside your door. The only thing that changes is the arrangement of your pillows and even that is so slight you sometimes suspect it is just your imagination. There are no diversions. Your royal amusements, hunting, chess, the occasional recitation of bad poetry, are now beyond you. To play chess would require you to sit up, to focus on the board, to listen to your opponent. You have not sat up for days. Even the books in your chamber gather dust, their words a blur when you try to read. You do not have the patience to follow a story or the energy to care if the hero wins in the end. So you invent your own games. You count the cracks in the ceiling, trace their slow migration through the lime wash, and assign them the names of your enemies. That long, jagged fissure, Ethelred, the small one branching at the edge, perhaps your stepmother. You try to predict which will reach the wall first. Sometimes you count your breaths, hoping the rhythm will lull you to sleep. It rarely does. More often, it simply reminds you how many breaths you have left. The hours crawl by, punctuated by the same rituals. A servant arrives with broth, another wipes your brow. The physician appears, makes a show of feeling your pulse, asks about your dreams, prescribes the same foul tasting potion. The priest recites prayers at regular intervals, his voice a monotonous drone. None of them look you in the eye for long. You realize you have become something to be endured, a trial of patience for everyone involved. You try, at times, to engage them. You ask the serving girl her name, but she blushes and looks away, afraid to speak too much to the dying king. You joke with the physician, but he is too busy thinking about humors and leeches to appreciate your wit. The priest is unshakably solemn. He takes every question as an opportunity for a lecture on virtue and sin. In the end, conversation itself feels like another symptom, something forced, unnatural, and uncomfortably revealing. Sometimes you imagine what the rest of the castle is doing. You picture your half brother at study, your stepmother at prayer, the servants gossiping in the kitchens, the guards dozing at their posts. Life continues around you, indifferent. You realize, with a certain detached amusement, that your death will be more interesting to them than your life has been for months. They are just waiting, like you, for the main event. The light fades, and your chamber turns blue with twilight. You listen to the mice scurrying between the stones, to the drip of water from somewhere unseen, to the creak of wood as the castle settles. There is a strange comfort in these little sounds. They are proof that something is happening, even if you are not a part of it. The dreams, when they come, are as dull as your waking hours. You dream of lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. You dream of being carried through endless corridors, never arriving anywhere. You dream of your own funeral, an endless procession of bored mourners. You wake from these dreams feeling cheated, as if sleep itself has grown tired of inventing new torments for you. Once or twice you try to pray. You whisper to whatever power might be listening: God, the saints, the ghosts of old kings. You do not ask for healing, only for distraction. If the Lord is merciful, he will send you a new crack in the ceiling or a slightly different bowl of broth. If not, you will endure another day exactly like this one. You become obsessed with the smallest details, the uneven stitching in the hem of your blanket, the chip in your wooden bowl, the way your own breath fogs the air, then vanishes. You trace the outline of your hand beneath the covers, counting your fingers, flexing them to see if you still can. Every sensation becomes a subject for study, a lesson in tedium. It occurs to you that perhaps this, and not the pain, is what makes dying so unbearable. The slow collapse of possibility, the knowledge that nothing new will happen. The world shrinks to a point, and you wait for the point to disappear altogether. As the candle gutters low, you stare into the darkness and wonder how much boredom a man can bear before he ceases to be a man at all. You think, not for the first time, that you are not dying from disease, but from sheer, unrelenting monotony. Tomorrow will be the same. You are sure of it, and that is, somehow, the worst part of all. You might think that being king means that having the best that medicine can offer. In reality, it means you are surrounded by an unending parade of men who claim to know what is wrong with you, and worse, how to fix it. They come with heavy robes, heavy breath, and heavier expectations. They come because it is an honor to treat a king, even a dying one, especially a dying one. The door is never closed for long. One after another, they step through, some sent by your stepmother, some by bishops, some summoned by your own desperate advisors. Every physician brings his own collection of jars, pouches, roots, dried frogs, holy relics, and opinions. You could fill the treasury with all the opinions, if only they were made of gold. First is the court physician, the one who has bled you the most. He smells of cloves and anxiety. He checks your pulse, squints at your tongue, frowns at your skin. His eyes dart to the shadows, as if afraid of being judged by ghosts of failed patients past. He recommends another round of hot compresses and warm wine. You nod. You know the routine. Then comes the herbalist from the monastery, who has the air of someone who would rather be in the garden. He carries bundles of withered plants, which he waves over your face like holy relics. He instructs the servants to brew teas so bitter you wonder if they are made from despair itself. The teas do not work, but he assures you that the fault lies with your soul, not his recipe. A third is a traveler, a man who claims to have studied in the great cities of the continent, Paris, Salerno, perhaps even Rome. His robes are too bright for the drab castle, and he speaks with an accent that makes his promises sound like threats. He brings small glass vials filled with colored liquids. He insists you swallow a concoction of ground pearls, rose water, and something sharp that burns your throat for hours. He proclaims you will be cured by morning. You are not. You realize that for every physician who leaves, another is already waiting to take his place, as if your chamber is some sort of tournament ground. Their remedies pile up on your table, a poultice of onions and leeks, a tincture of poppy, a salve of honey and wax. Each promises a miracle. Each delivers only disappointment. They do not agree with one another naturally. When the herbalist learns the court physician has bled you, he shakes his head and mutters about the folly of modern science. The court physician complains that the herbalist's concoctions only feed the demons inside you. The foreigner, for his part, calls them both ignorant and threatens to write a letter to the king, forgetting, perhaps, that you are the king. You watch these battles with the interest of a man watching rain soak through the roof. You know it is happening. You know it is a problem, but you are too tired to do anything about it. You are poked, prodded, pinched, wrapped, and unwrapped. The only thing you can say for certain is that no two physicians ever use the same method. One tells you to eat only bread soaked in milk. Another bans milk and prescribes only broths. One insists on prayer, another on poppy juice. They agree on nothing except that you are very ill and it is, clearly, someone else's fault. As your illness deepens, the desperation in their eyes grows. No one wants to be remembered as the man who could not cure the king. They linger by your bedside longer each day, suggesting new, more elaborate rituals, special baths, complicated diets, secret prayers whispered in Latin. You begin to think they are more afraid of your death than you are. The servants suffer most of all. Each new treatment means another trip to the kitchens, the gardens, or the stables. They fetch water, grind herbs, heat stones, slaughter chickens, and strain to find the first morning dew for a compress. They move through your chamber as quietly as ghosts, hoping not to be blamed for the inevitable failure. In rare moments of silence, you listen to the physicians argue outside your door. They speak of you as if you are already a corpse, a cautionary tale for apprentices. Their words are muffled, but you hear enough. Too weak, too late, too many mistakes. You wonder if the only real cure for your sickness is for them all to go away. You sometimes dream that the next man through the door will be a true healer, a man with a touch of magic. Instead, it is always another expert with another theory and another unpleasant surprise. Your faith in medicine fades with every sunrise. You lie back, exhausted by all the hope that has been thrust upon you. The only thing you truly wish for now is peace, but that, you suspect, is not something any of these physicians can provide. When the noise dies down, when the healers finally leave, and the servants have finished their endless procession of broth and towels, and even the priest has taken his prayers to someone else's bedside, you are left alone with your thoughts. In the quiet, the world becomes a little less about your suffering body and a little more about the burden that brought you here, the crown. It is strange, but your mind drifts not to glory or triumph, but to tiredness. There is a particular kind of exhaustion that only a king can know, and you, young as you are, feel it in your marrow. You think of your first days as king, your father's sudden death, the way the court looked at you, some with hope, most with calculation. You wonder now if the weight of all those expectations is not the true illness eating you from within. You try to remember happiness, but the memories flutter away like frightened birds. Instead, you recall debates about taxes, feasts where no one laughed, decisions where everyone lost. The throne has a way of turning every pleasure into an obligation. You were never allowed to be just Edward, a boy who wanted to run or sulk or hide. You had to be Edward the King, and you had to do it well, even when you felt like nothing more than a child with a crown too large for his head. You know you are not loved for yourself. If anyone loves you, it is for what you represent: power, stability, the thin hope that this time, just this once, a king will not become a tyrant or a corpse too soon. Your friends are either gone or turned into rivals. Even those who call themselves loyal, your stepmother, your half brother, your counsel, watch you with eyes full of calculation. You can almost hear them thinking, when will he die? Who will take his place? What will I get when the pieces are swept off the board? You are too tired to blame them. You suspect that if you were in their shoes, you would think the same way. This is the way of kingship. Every life is a move in a game no one ever wins. It is a strange comfort knowing that even as your body betrays you, so too does the world outside your chamber. It is almost democratic in a way. Everyone is waiting for someone else to fail. You reflect in these dark moments on your own failures. You recall the laws you passed, the rebellions you failed to stop, the moments when you stood up in court and realized no one was really listening. You remember, with a kind of hollow amusement, that the things which made you feel most alive, riding, laughing, shouting at the sky, were always the things least allowed to a king. You sometimes wonder if it was worth it. If given the choice, you would have preferred to be a blacksmith, or a farmer, or even a common thief. Anyone but the boy who became king and found himself trapped in his own legend. The legends never mention the slow days, the endless paperwork, the boredom, the fear. They never talk about the nights spent awake, haunted not by ghosts, but by the knowledge that every decision could doom 100 lives. Now, with death's shadow curling at your toes, you find yourself envying those who never had a crown to carry. At least their burdens could be put down at the end of the day. Yours clings to you, a golden weight, a circlet that presses on your brow even here in this sick bed. You imagine the day you will die. You picture the court gathering, solemn faced, not because they mourn you, but because protocol demands it. Your stepmother will weep prettily. Your half brother will lower his eyes in modest grief, and the lords will begin, even as your body cools, to argue about your successor. You suspect the cook will be the only one who genuinely mourns. He will miss your simple taste in food. You think about the next king. You hope, foolishly, that he will have an easier time, that he will know when to laugh, when to trust, when to rest. You suspect he will not. The world does not allow kings to be human, only symbols. And when symbols grow sick, or tired, or old, they are replaced with barely a pause. There is a certain freedom in this realization. If you have failed, so has everyone before you, and so will everyone after. The world does not remember kings for their sleepless nights or quiet tears, only for their wars and scandals. You will be a name in a chronicle, a painting in a dusty hall, a skull beneath a gilded stone. You close your eyes and let the quiet fill you. For a moment, you are neither king nor patient, just a boy, tired and alone, wishing that for one day he could live without being watched, measured, and judged. Tomorrow, the physicians will return. The servants will resume their rounds. The court will keep scheming, and you will keep dying, as all kings do, surrounded by people, but utterly alone. Night falls with the certainty of mildew, seeping into the corners of your chamber and settling over your bed like a second, heavier blanket. You lie in the same position you have occupied for what feels like years, flat on your back, staring at a ceiling whose stains you could now draw from memory. The linen beneath you, once white, has turned a patchwork of brown and yellow, the record of endless sweats and fevers. The odor is sharp, undeniable, but no one comments. They simply change your tunic and leave the sheets, as if ignoring the rot will somehow keep you whole. You try not to think about the last time your bed was truly clean. The servants change the topmost layer, carefully rolling the soiled sheet beneath you and sliding a less soiled one into place. There is a choreography to it. Two girls on either side, lifting you by the arms and legs with a mixture of reluctance and reverence. It is not dignity, what they preserve, but a memory of dignity, a hope that someday someone will write about how the young king met his end with composure. In reality, you are a bundle of aches and humiliation. Every move exposes some new pain, a raw place where the fabric rubs your skin, a bone bruised from pressing too long into straw. Sometimes you wish they would stop trying. Just let the dirt accumulate, let the lice nest, let the smell drive everyone away. At least then you could be alone with your discomfort without the performance of care. Sleep does not come easily. You twist and turn, searching for a cool spot on the pillow, but find only dampness. The sheets cling to your skin, a second layer of sweat. You count the stains on the ceiling, the cracks in the wall, the slow drip from the eaves. Each sound is a reminder that time continues even when you wish it would stop. Your mind drifts, but never settles. You think about old stories, about saints who welcomed suffering as a test of faith. You wonder what they would have done with dirty linen and lice. Would they have wept, prayed, or simply cursed the day they were born? You do none of these things. You simply endure, your thoughts circling the same worn paths. Sometimes, in the deepest part of night, you slip into a doze and dream. These are not the comforting dreams of childhood. Instead, you dream you are still lying in your bed, unable to move, while unseen creatures scurry beneath the sheets. They nibble at your toes, crawl up your legs, nestle into the hollow behind your knees. You try to shake them off, but you are as powerless in dream as you are in life. You wake to the feeling of crawling on your skin and wonder if it is real or imagined. In the gray pre-dawn light, you check your arms for bites. There are always new ones, tiny red bumps and patterns you almost recognize. The physician blames your humors. The wise woman blames evil spirits. You blame the filth and wonder if anyone will ever admit it. Some nights, the fever breaks. You are left shivering in a puddle of your own sweat, teeth chattering, the sheets soaked through. The servants find you at dawn, pale and shrunken, and change everything with a practiced efficiency. They never meet your eyes. You suspect they are more tired of you than you are of them. When you do manage to sleep, it is not restful. You dream of falling endlessly through cold and empty space. Sometimes you land, but always in another bed, in another room, with another set of dirty sheets. You wake exhausted, more tired than before, with no sense of how much time has passed. You envy those who sleep deeply, the guards at their posts, the cooks after a long day, even the rats in the walls. You would give anything for a single night of oblivion, unbroken by aches and crawling things and the distant clang of bells. Instead, you listen to the castle settle, to the wind pushing at the shutters, to the ever present hum of your own breath. The physician suggests a stronger draught to help you sleep. It is thick and sweet, tasting of poppy and something sour. You drink it dutifully, as you do all things now, but it brings only confusion. Your thoughts grow sluggish, your limbs heavy, but you never quite cross the border into true rest. You float just beneath the surface, trapped between worlds, unable to rise or to sink. The chamber grows colder as the night deepens. You pull the blanket to your chin and shiver, but the cold is inside you now, mingled with the fever and the fear. You think of all the kings who died in beds like this, surrounded by dirt and silence, remembered more for their titles than their lives. You wonder what they thought about as the hours dragged by, if they too found themselves longing for sleep, not for its rest, but for its mercy. Eventually, dawn seeps through the narrow window, painting everything in sickly yellow. The servants return, silent and grim, and the day begins again. The sheets are still dirty, your body still aches, and sleep still refuses to visit. You lie back, exhausted, and wait for another night, hoping in vain that this one will be different. Morning brings with it a new, awkward kind of ceremony. You have become an object of pilgrimage, a holy relic, except instead of healing the sick, you are the sickness everyone hopes to survive. Word has spread that your illness is not passing, and so the parade of visitors begins. They arrive in twos and threes, bearing anxious smiles and shallow bows, careful not to get too close to your bed. First come the distant cousins, their faces a muddle of familiarity and ambition. They stand at the foot of your bed, clutching each other's sleeves and murmur well wishes in Latinized English. They ask about your health with the breathless hope of those who do not wish to hear the answer. One brings you a posy of wilted violets, which are promptly dropped into a jug and forgotten. You thank them as the etiquette demands, and watch their eyes slide past you to the empty space where a throne should be. Next are the more important guests, your counselors and senior lords. Their visits are a study in caution. They do not linger long enough to catch your fever, but they stay just long enough to be remembered as loyal. They speak in soft tones of duty and legacy, but their eyes glimmer with calculation. You hear the unspoken words in every pause. Who next? When? How soon? Some offer advice, as if you are not dying, but only temporarily inconvenienced. They list solutions, recite prayers, suggest that perhaps with a change in diet or a different tonic, you might yet return to counsel. You listen, but you have stopped pretending to care. Then comes your stepmother. She enters with a practiced grace, dressed in mourning colors just dark enough to seem sincere, but not so funereal as to tempt fate. She sits by your side and dabs her eyes with a handkerchief. Her conversation is all gentle concern and veiled reminders of your half brother's rights. She leans close, lowering her voice to a whisper, and asks if there are any last wishes, any special requests, any royal secrets you would like to share, purely for the sake of the kingdom, of course. You shake your head. She departs, the scent of her rose oil lingering long after she is gone. Your half brother is next, escorted by a nervous tutor. He looks at you the way a boy stares at a winter river, curious, a little frightened, half hoping it will crack. He mumbles a hope for your swift recovery, and you almost laugh at the effort it costs him to sound sad. You remember, with a bitterness that surprises even you, how you used to ruffle his hair when he was a child. Now he stands with his fists clenched and his eyes on the floor, waiting for the world to change. There are more guests, ladies from court, minor lords, a priest or two, even the castle steward, who bows so deeply you fear he will never stand up straight again. Each brings their own flavor of forced sympathy, gifts of food you cannot eat, stories you cannot follow, questions you cannot answer. They all promise to pray for your recovery. You suspect they already pray for your passing. The chamber is never truly empty. Even between visits, you sense the echo of their footsteps, the tremor of their expectations. You can hear the muffled arguments in the corridor, the careful rehearsals of what to say to a dying king. Occasionally, you catch the servant's whispers. Did you see how pale he looks? He barely spoke. It cannot be much longer. They try to keep their voices low, but in this castle, secrets are always half shouted. The worst are the guests who pretend not to be guests. They come under the guise of routine, the physician, the priest, the steward, but their eyes linger too long on your face. Their hands hover as if wanting to comfort, but unsure how. The physician checks your pulse with a sigh. The priest presses a cross to your brow and mutters a benediction so quickly you suspect even God might miss it. The steward asks if you would like more pillows, as if comfort is a luxury you have not yet tried. You discover new talents for acting. You smile at jokes you do not hear, nod at plans you do not understand, thank people for favors you never requested. You give them what they want, a last glimpse of the king, who is still, in some fashion, alive. You do it not because you owe them, but because you cannot bear the alternative, to watch their faces collapse into fear, or worse, relief. After each visit, you are more tired than before. The sheets feel heavier, the air more stifling. You stare at the door and wish, just once, that someone would come to say goodbye without calculation, without curiosity. Someone who would simply sit and hold your hand and let you be, for a moment, not a king, but a person. But that is not how these stories end. You are a relic now, a symbol, a milestone on someone else's path to power. The only true farewell will come when they close your eyes and sweep out the chamber, already measuring the space for new ambitions. The day passes in a blur of faces and voices, and by evening you are alone again, more alone than ever, surrounded by the ghosts of conversations and the unspoken certainty that the world is already moving on without you. You lie back, close your eyes, and listen to the echo of footsteps fading down the corridor. One day, they will stop visiting altogether. You find, to your surprise, that you look forward to that day. There is a certain hour each evening when the castle grows hushed and the world outside your narrow window dissolves into darkness. It is then that the priest comes, as surely as the cold, a shape in black habit drifting through the gloom, carrying his instruments of comfort and terror, his prayer book, a battered crucifix, and a flask of oil that smells like wilted lilies and guilt. He sits at your side with all the gravity of a man accustomed to deathbeds, his voice settling into a rhythm designed to lull or to warn. It is hard to tell which. You have never feared confession. It is part of the ritual, like washing before supper or bowing at the altar, a cleansing for the soul, they say, though the stains always return. Now, however, the priest's words cling to you, sticky as fever sweat. He speaks of salvation and damnation in the same breath, his eyes fixed on the wall above your head, as if even he cannot look at you directly while discussing what might come next. You are told that suffering purifies, that each hour of agony will be counted in your favor when the scales are weighed. You try to picture these scales, great golden things held by an angel with hands like swords, and wonder how much pain is enough to tip the balance. More than this? Surely not. The priest assures you that a king's trials are heavier, that responsibility itself is a kind of penance. You almost laugh. If only he knew how little responsibility you feel now, lying here as the world continues elsewhere. Prayer is another ceremony, and one that seems to grow more urgent as your flesh fails. The priest kneels, reciting litanies in Latin, the syllables tumbling over one another in a monotone, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, as if testing which pace will reach heaven more quickly. He urges you to join, but your voice is weak and your Latin never very good. You mouth the words anyway, hoping that intent will count for more than pronunciation. You are reminded repeatedly that the afterlife awaits, heaven, hell, and 1,000 shades between. The stories from your childhood return, the flames that never die, the rivers of ice, the golden city where the saints wear crowns far heavier than yours. The priest describes a realm of endless peace for the righteous, and you wonder, with a flicker of worry, whether kings are ever truly counted among them. Your mind circles the old doubts. Did you confess enough? Were your motives ever pure? Is regret enough to save a soul? The priest senses your uncertainty. He speaks now of penance and the mercy of last rites. He produces a vial of holy oil and anoints your forehead, drawing a trembling cross that is colder than any blessing ought to be. He whispers absolution, offering you a clean slate, if only you can believe in it. The smell of oil mixes with sweat and fear, leaving you dizzy. You close your eyes and try to imagine your soul shining clean, but it is hard to see past the grime of the day, the weight of your regrets. Outside, the wind howls. It sounds like mourning or accusation. The priest raises his voice to compete, reciting stories of martyrs and kings who found their way to grace through suffering. You listen, but it is difficult to believe that any path leads out of this room. Your world is stone and shadows, stained linen and murmured prayers. If heaven is anything, it must surely be a place where beds are clean and nights are quiet. Some nights, when the priest has gone and you are left with the echo of his words, you wonder what comes next. Will it be light or darkness? Will you wake to trumpets and angels, or simply drift into a silence deeper than sleep? There is a terror in not knowing, a fear that the suffering was for nothing, or that it will never end. You think about the people you have lost, your father, a handful of friends, the faces that once filled your halls and are now only names. Did they feel the same uncertainty? Did they beg for comfort, or did they slip away without a fight? You wish you could ask them, but all you have is the priest's assurance and your own unsettled hope. Sometimes you wish the afterlife would reveal itself, just for a moment, a glimpse through the veil, a whisper of certainty. Instead, you get more prayers, more rituals, more warnings. You nod along, feigning comfort, because it is what is expected, because fear unspoken is easier to carry. The priest lingers, waiting for a question, an outpouring of guilt, a moment of tearful repentance. But your mind is too tired for confession, too muddled by fever to separate sin from circumstance. You close your eyes and pretend to sleep, and eventually, mercifully, he leaves. You listen to the silence he leaves behind, the absence of holy words echoing louder than the prayers themselves. You wonder, with a mix of dread and resignation, if the next world will be any less lonely than this one. For now, all you can do is wait. Wait for the next prayer, the next shadow, the next nightfall, and hope, if hope is still possible, that someone, somewhere, is listening. There comes a point when even hope seems too heavy to carry. You lie in your bed and feel yourself shrinking, the edges of your world curling inward like old parchment left too close to the fire. Each day you are a little less hungry, less alert, less alive. At first, you notice it in the small things, a tremor in your hands when you reach for the cup, a new hesitancy in your voice, as if every word must be hunted down and dragged from some deep, cold place within you. Your vision blurs at the edges, and the faces of those who visit blend together, a blur of anxious eyes, downturned mouths, forced cheer. Their words float above you, just out of reach, as if spoken in another room. The aches multiply. What began as a cough is now a constant pressure in your chest, a weight that does not lift, even when you try to sit upright. Your skin, once flushed with fever, now takes on the pallor of wax. The servants notice and exchange meaningful glances. The priest prays louder. The physician grows more urgent and less confident. You begin to wonder which will kill you first, the disease or the endless remedies meant to cure it. Food, already unappealing, becomes an ordeal. Your mouth is dry, your tongue leaden. You push away the bowl after a few bites, unable to bear the taste, the texture, even the smell. Each refusal is met with concern and then exasperation, one more sign that you are slipping away. They try everything: thick stews, clear broths, milk sweetened with honey, a morsel of bread dipped in wine. Nothing tempts you. The effort of chewing, of swallowing, is simply too great. You lose the ability to move easily. Your limbs are heavy and uncooperative. Every shift in the bed, a campaign of gritted teeth and muttered curses. There are new sores along your back, your hips, your elbows, the inevitable legacy of too many hours spent lying still on lumpy straw. The physician examines them with a frown and prescribes more ointments, more wrappings, more careful repositioning. The servants do what they can, but you feel their patience wearing thin. The pain is constant, unrelenting, but you are too tired to complain. Time itself unspools, tangled and confused. You no longer know what day it is. Light and darkness chase each other through the narrow window, but you no longer mark their passage. You drift between waking and sleep, but there is little difference between the two. Dreams and reality intermingle. Faces loom above you. Voices call your name, sometimes gentle, sometimes harsh. You answer when you can, but more often you simply let the world wash over you. Your body betrays you in new ways. Your breathing grows shallower, each inhalation a labor, each exhalation a relief. You feel your heart flutter, stutter, then resume its weary rhythm. There are nights when you are convinced you will not wake in the morning, and yet the morning always comes, relentless and gray. There is a cruel mercy in this, as if death is in no hurry and prefers to watch you fade inch by inch. The physician grows more desperate, alternating between optimism and resignation with the predictabilities of a pendulum. He brings new remedies every day, a different infusion of herbs, another leech, a new prayer muttered under his breath. He tells you stories of miraculous recoveries, but you hear the strain in his voice, the knowledge that he is reciting fairy tales for a child. You nod along because it is easier than arguing. The priest visits more often now, his prayers growing longer, his hands colder. He speaks of redemption, of the final journey, of the peace that awaits beyond suffering. You try to believe him, but your faith, like your body, has grown thin and brittle. The promises of heaven are harder to swallow than the broth. You sense the mood in the castle changing. The footsteps outside your door are more hurried, the voices more subdued. News of your decline has spread, and you become the subject of whispered conversations, of cautious planning. You are both present and absent, a king in name only, a problem to be solved by those with more strength, more appetite, more time. And yet, For all the talk of decline, there is nothing dramatic about it. You do not rage or weep or curse the heavens. You simply diminish day by day. You grow quieter, lighter, a shadow of yourself. The world does not pause to notice your passing. The castle functions as it always has. Meals are prepared, guards change their posts, the church bells toll on schedule. Life continues, indifferent to the fact that you are less alive each morning. You wonder sometimes if you are already a ghost, haunting your own bed. You think of all the things you meant to do, the words you meant to say, the people you meant to forgive. It all seems so far away now, receding into the fog of your sickness. All that is left is the slow decline, the gradual surrender to the inevitable. You close your eyes and try to remember what it felt like to be strong, to be young, to be king. But the memories are fading, like everything else. Soon, you think, there will be nothing left to remember. The castle never truly sleeps, but now you sense it most in the hush that settles after sunset, in the way voices echo through the stone corridors with a new, nervous energy. It is not your suffering that animates these walls. It is the expectation that soon, at last, there will be a vacancy. The politics of death in a king's house is quieter than the politics of life, but not by much. You can almost map the ambitions by the sounds you hear or do not hear outside your chamber door. There are footsteps, light and quick, belonging to messengers who dart from one shadowy hallway to another, never daring to linger too long in the open. There are long pauses as guards whisper together, wondering when their shift will bring news of a new lord. Every servant, every steward, every member of your council has grown skilled at walking softly, at masking their conversations, but even the thickest stone walls cannot silence ambition. Your stepmother is, as ever, a master of ceremony. She comes to see you, always dressed in black with just enough color to hint at hope. Her words are soft and caring, but her eyes move constantly, calculating, reassessing, planning. She asks after your comfort and offers to pray with you, but you see her glancing at your hands, your mouth, searching for signs that she may soon act more boldly. When she leaves, you hear her voice echoing off the stones, brisk and purposeful, arranging audiences, dispatching notes, rehearsing her grief for a larger audience. Your half brother visits, or rather, is brought by handlers who think it good for him reputation. He is careful never to look you in the eye. He mumbles platitudes, repeats what he has been told to say, and shuffles his feet until he is allowed to leave. In his wake, you imagine the tutors and retainers who cluster around him, already shaping him into the next king, correcting his posture, drilling him in the delicate arts of survival and conquest. Among your counselors, the mood has changed entirely. Where once they argued in your presence about matters of law or taxes, now they have become united in silence. Their visits are rare and short, full of bows and murmured regrets. You can feel them withdrawing their loyalty, packing it away for whoever claims the throne next. Some, have already made promises they hope will protect their lands and lives. Others simply wait, believing themselves clever for hiding their impatience behind a mask of sorrow. The priest, too, is swept up in this current. His prayers are more frequent, but less sincere. He lingers at your bedside longer than necessary, hoping to glean some sign of your final wishes, a blessing, a last command, anything that can be used as currency in the market of succession. You almost admire his pragmatism. He knows that a dying king's words have value, even when the king himself is nearly spent. It is in the evenings, when the visitors stop coming and the castle breathes in the dark, that the true machinations begin. You hear distant voices, muffled but tense, carrying through stone corridors. Names are whispered, yours, your half brothers, your stepmothers, and always the ever present question, who will take the throne and who will benefit? You know that every promise made now will be broken the moment you take your last breath. The servants, meanwhile, have developed their own form of politics. They move in pairs or threes, always glancing over their shoulders, always measuring which lord or lady will rule them tomorrow. They gossip more openly now, convinced that their loyalty today will be remembered tomorrow. You hear them weigh the odds. Who will be generous? Who will be cruel? Who will notice if a certain tray is delivered late or a message goes undelivered? You are still king in theory, but your power now is an illusion, a cloak that hangs heavier with every passing day. You are a symbol of continuity, of divine right, but everyone in this castle is already living in a future where you are absent. They are careful to treat you well. No one wants to be accused of hastening the end, but their hearts are elsewhere, their thoughts occupied by strategies, alliances, and the hope of advancement. Even your body is political now. Every cough, every shudder, every report from the physician is weighed and discussed, not for its own sake, but for what it means to the balance of power. Your decline is a signal, a starting gun, an invitation to gamble. No one is cruel enough to say it openly, but you see it in their faces. The curiosity, the nervous anticipation, the almost giddy relief that the worst, your endless, indecisive illness, might finally be ending. You find yourself strangely detached from it all. You watch the politics swirl around you with the weary eyes of a spectator who knows the play by heart. There is no suspense for you. You have lived too long among schemers and courtiers to expect anything else. In another life, you might even admire their industry. As you slip further into weakness, your only consolation is that, at last, you are no longer expected to play the game. You have become the board itself, marked for replacement. Soon they will have what they want, your absence, and with it, the chance to begin anew the ancient dance of power, betrayal, and ambition. You close your eyes and let them plot. You have nothing left to give, not even resistance. The kingdom will survive you, as it has survived so many kings before. And somewhere, deep in the quiet of your heart, you feel the first faint stirrings of freedom. Pain is supposed to be dramatic. It is supposed to make you scream or faint or rail at the heavens. The truth is, pain, real, persistent pain, is none of these things. It is tedious, repetitive, unyielding. It is the scrape of rough linen against an open sore, the gnawing ache in your joints, the dry heat behind your eyes. It is a throb in your back that never quite goes away, a heaviness in your head that no amount of prayer or poppy juice can lift. You learn to catalog your agonies. There are the sharp ones, the needles of cramp in your calves, the stabs in your chest each time you cough, the shooting pain along your spine when a servant shifts your position with a little too much enthusiasm. Then there are the dull aches, the constant bruising at your hips and shoulders, the slow march of numbness down your legs, the unceasing headache that hums beneath every other thought. These you can predict, can almost schedule like tedious visitors that arrive each day, whether invited or not. There is the pain of breathing. Every breath is a decision. How deeply, how quickly, whether to risk the spasm that will leave you gasping for air. You have grown skilled at breathing shallowly, sipping air through clenched teeth, timing your movements to minimize the cost. Even so, there are moments when the pain surprises you, when your own body seems to turn against you in small, petty acts of sabotage. Your mouth is perpetually dry, no matter how much water or wine they bring you. Swallowing is an ordeal, your throat raw and burning, your tongue too thick for your mouth. Sometimes you choke, and for a moment you wish it would end there, quickly, with less fuss than this drawn out spectacle. But always the breath returns, ragged and unsatisfying, and you are left counting the seconds until the next wave of discomfort. You are never comfortable. No position is right. Lying on your back sends fire down your legs. Lying on your side crushes your ribs. Sitting upright is possible only with help, and only for a few minutes before the world tilts and you must lie down again. The physician fusses with pillows, with supports, with bandages and ointments, but nothing truly helps. Your body is a puzzle that cannot be solved, a collection of pains that shift and multiply no matter what is done. Your skin is a map of suffering, where once you bore only the odd bruise from hunting or the scratch from a fall, now you are covered in sores, red, swollen, sometimes oozing. The servants clean them with grim efficiency, their faces blank, their hands steady. You watch their eyes for disgust or pity, but see only resignation. Your body is their daily labor, no different from sweeping floors or scrubbing pots. There is an indignity to this, but it is lost beneath the waves of pain. You stop caring who sees you, who smells you, who gossips about the state of your wounds. Vanity is for the living. You are beyond it now, a creature of need and response, stripped down to the bare mechanics of suffering. Even your senses conspire against you. The chamber smells of old sweat, damp straw, and the metallic tang of blood. Every sound grates, the scrape of a bowl against the table, the drone of flies, the endless mutter of prayers from the priest. The light is too sharp during the day, the darkness too thick at night. Sometimes you long for silence, for darkness, for the end of sensation altogether. You think sometimes about how pain makes the world smaller. There is no future, only the present, only the next breath, the next twinge, the next attempt to find some relief. You remember, in a distant, theoretical way, that you were once a king, a boy who ran through fields, who laughed and fought and dreamed. Those memories are thin now, fragile as cobwebs. Pain is your companion, your routine, your reality. And yet, you endure, not because you are brave, not because you hope for recovery, but because endurance is what is left when everything else is gone. You lie in your bed and take the next breath, and the next, and the next, because that is what the body does until it cannot. Sometimes the physician asks you to describe your pain, as if naming it will make it more manageable, more scientific. You try, stabbing, burning, aching, throbbing, crushing. The words mean nothing. Pain is not an enemy you can name or fight. It is a landscape you inhabit, endless and unmapped. In rare moments of lucidity, you wonder how much more there can be, how many more days or nights you will be asked to bear it. But the question is pointless. The pain answers for you as long as it wishes, as long as you remain. The chronicles will not record these details. They will mention only that the king suffered bravely, that he met his end with dignity. No one will write of the slow, grinding agony, the hours spent staring at the wall, the daily humiliation of being alive and hurting. But you will remember, even as the world forgets. For now, you close your eyes and wait for the next visitation, the next agony, the next day in this endless, boring history of pain. There was a time when food meant pleasure, or at least distraction. In the early days, you looked forward to meals as punctuation marks in the monotony, a chance to taste something other than the inside of your own mouth, to experience a moment's relief from aches and fears. Now, food is another battlefield, and you are losing. It begins with aversion. The sight of bread, once comforting in its simplicity, now provokes only indifference. The crust is too hard, the crumb too dry. The wine, which once warmed your stomach and colored your cheeks, now tastes sharp, metallic, a liquid reminder of the blood you have lost. Broths and stews, the staples of a sick room, are paraded in on wooden trays, always steaming, always smelling of onion and garlic and whatever else could be scraped together from the kitchens. You recognize the effort, but not the flavor. Eating is an ordeal. Your mouth feels foreign, your teeth ache, your gums bleed, and every swallow is a minor trial. The physician and your attendants urge you to try, coaxing you with soft words and pitying looks. You obey, lifting the spoon with hands that tremble, only to find that food has turned to ashes on your tongue. Even honeyed milk, once a comfort in cold seasons, is now little more than a cloying film coating your mouth. On good days, you manage a few bites, enough to satisfy the physician, to avoid the lecture about keeping your strength. On most days, even that is too much. The effort of chewing, of moving your jaw, of coaxing your reluctant throat to accept something solid, it is all too much for a body that has already decided it is done. When you do eat, Your stomach rebels, sending everything back up in waves of sour, humiliating nausea. You remember feasts, long tables groaning under the weight of roasted meats, jugs of spiced wine, platters piled high with apples, pears, and sweet pastries. You remember the laughter, the warmth, the way the smells would fill the hall until your head spun. You remember sneaking extra sweets as a boy, hiding crusts in your sleeve when you could not finish. You remember sharing bread with friends who are now gone by battle, by betrayal, by time. Now the thought of such abundance makes you shudder. You could not eat a single bite, even if the old world was set before you. The attendants try to tempt you with delicacies, a slice of cheese, a preserved plum, a handful of hazelnuts. Sometimes they bring things you once claimed as favorites, little cakes flavored with cinnamon, a cup of strong ale, a wedge of sharp, crumbly cheese. You try to thank them, but your voice is thin, and your attempts to eat are thinner still. The taste, if it comes at all, is muddled, a distant echo of pleasure you barely recognize. There is something especially cruel about the way food lingers in a dying room. Each meal you cannot eat is a small surrender, a sign that your body is shutting down its borders, refusing to allow even comfort through. The servants take away the untouched bowls, always with downcast eyes. You want to tell them it is not their fault, that the battle was lost long before their arrival, but words cost more than you can afford. Sometimes the smell of food is enough to make you weep. The scent of fresh bread from the kitchens below, the faint aroma of roasting meat on feast days, these are memories that haunt the corridors of your mind, reminders of another life, another appetite. You are not hungry, not really, but you mourn the loss of desire itself. Hunger was, at least, a sign of life. Water is the last thing you cling to. Even that is a struggle. Cold water chills your teeth. Warm water tastes like metal. You sip slowly, hoping each drop will soothe your parched throat. Most days, it is enough. On others, you cough and splutter, and the cup is taken away before you can protest. The physician grows more insistent. He prescribes broths, tisanes, even wine mixed with egg yolk and honey, but none of it stays down. He mutters about feeding you with a spoon, about concoctions that can be forced past your lips, but even he knows it is hopeless. Your body is closing its doors, room by room, and so you lie back and remember. You recall the last meal you truly enjoyed, the taste of summer berries, the crunch of fresh apple, the bite of sharp cheese on the tip of your tongue. You recall laughter at the high table, the comfort of a full belly, the luxury of taking it all for granted. You wonder, in your more lucid moments, if you will taste anything again before the end. If you will ever crave bread, or wine, or sweetness. The thought is almost amusing. Food is for the living, after all. Now you exist in a world where every flavor is a ghost, and every meal is a farewell. You are too tired to notice. There is a peculiar choreography to the way people move around a dying king. For as long as you remain breathing, you are a symbol, a duty, a problem that cannot be ignored. Your presence must be acknowledged, your comfort feigned, your opinions solicited, though nobody really wants the answers. It is not you they care about, not anymore, but the figure you represent, the formality they must endure, until your final breath grants them permission to forget you. You see it in the servants first. They enter your chamber with the careful politeness of actors who know the play is nearly over. Their bows are practiced, their smiles brittle. When they speak, it is with exaggerated cheerfulness, as if their optimism might will your health back into existence. A fine morning, Your Majesty, they say, while their eyes dart to the corner where the physician keeps his remedies, as if watching for an exit. They fluff your pillows and pour your water, performing their tasks with the precision of ritual, but you sense the impatience beneath every gesture. Their concern is measured, just enough to keep their consciences clear, never enough to risk genuine disappointment. The physician, too, still acts as if your recovery is imminent. He clings to his remedies, his routines, his self importance. He asks after your pains, prescribes new mixtures, adjusts your pillows, and consults his ancient texts with the seriousness of a man who has not yet admitted defeat. Sometimes he offers encouragement, as if words alone might trick your body into mending. Kings are strong, he says. God is merciful. You nod, knowing he repeats these lines more for himself than for you. There is a desperation in his optimism, a fear that your death will be his failure. Your counselors are the most accomplished performers of all. They arrive in pairs, never alone, with grave faces and courteous words. They ask for your guidance on matters that do not matter, for your signature on decrees, that will never be enforced, for your blessing on decisions already made. The business of the realm goes on, but their visits are empty ceremonies. They ask about your health, each time with less conviction, each time with more relief when your answer is vague. Their true business is elsewhere, outside your chamber, in whispered consultations, in letters dispatched under cover of darkness. In your presence, they play the loyal subjects, but their minds are already in a future you will not see. Even your family follows the script. Your stepmother arrives with her gentle hands and carefully chosen words, reminding you of prayers and memories you never shared. She sits beside you and offers comfort that feels as thin as the bedclothes, always glancing at your face to measure how soon she may begin mourning in earnest. Your half brother is less skilled at dissembling. He stands at the foot of your bed, shifting from foot to foot, mumbling platitudes and waiting for someone to dismiss him. When he leaves, it is with a lightness he tries and fails to conceal. There are moments when you catch them off guard, when a servant forgets to smile, when the physician lets his shoulders sag, when your stepmother's eyes narrow in calculation instead of sympathy. These are the only times you feel truly seen, not as a king, but as an inconvenience. You almost prefer their honesty. At least then, the performance is over, and you are allowed to be what you are, a dying man, irrelevant, except for the problems your absence will create. The priest alone seems untouched by the need to pretend, but even his concern feels impersonal. He speaks of the soul, of eternity, of the proper preparation for death. His eyes do not flicker, His voice does not waver. He is here for your spirit, not your comfort. And so he performs his own rituals with the indifference of a man reciting lines from memory. You wonder, as he murmurs his prayers, if he would notice if you slipped away mid sentence. You wonder sometimes what would happen if you simply refused to play along, if you refused the broth, the prayers, the endless encouragements. Would they drop the act? Would they reveal their relief? Or would they simply keep performing out of habit until the moment you stop breathing gives them permission to stop pretending? There is perhaps one consolation in all of this: the knowledge that you are not alone in your pretense. The court has always been a stage, the castle always an audience. You were acting long before you were dying, and so were they. Now, with the end in sight, the performance is only a little more transparent, the stakes a little higher. The script never changes, only the names in the margins. You begin to take a grim amusement in watching the others work so hard as to maintain the illusion. You reward their efforts with tired smiles and polite responses, aware that each word you speak is one less word they will have to invent. You become an accomplice in your own irrelevance, a collaborator in the grand play of royal decline. When night falls and the chamber empties, you are left with the silence, the only honest companion left to you. You lie back, close your eyes, and let the echoes of false concern wash over you. Tomorrow they will return with their careful smiles and hollow questions, and you will answer as you always have. The curtain never quite comes down, not until the last line is spoken, and you, as ever, will play your part. The nights are longer now. You mark them by the slow passage of shadows on the wall, the shudder of candlelight, the endless creak of the timbers as the castle settles into darkness. In the hours after everyone has left and the ritual of care and pretense is done, you find yourself alone with the ghosts of your own life. It is not the specter of death that keeps you awake, but the emptiness of what came before. You count the years, turning them over in your mind like worn coins. 17, perhaps a little more, if you believe the old priest who remembered your baptism. 17 years in which you have been a prince, a pawn, and, for a brief flicker, a king. You try to find the shape of a life in that span, but it slips through your fingers, formless, unfinished. It is not regret you feel exactly, but a kind of bewilderment at how little you have actually lived. You remember your earliest days, flashes of sunshine and open fields, the distant sound of bells, a world full of possibilities and dangers you did not understand. You remember clutching your mother's hand, though even that is more story than memory, a tale told so often that you have made it your own. You remember a nurse who sang to you, her voice so soft it felt like sleep, and a father who always seemed far away, even when he knelt beside you at prayers. The days of childhood were short, overtaken by lessons and rules and the suffocating air of the court. You learned early that your life was not your own. There were tutors with sharp eyes, bishops with sharper tongues, advisors who measured your words and weighed your silences. Play was always observed, Laughter always half suppressed. Even joy became something to be managed, noted, and stored away for future use. When you think of your coronation, it is with a strange detachment, as if recalling a play in which you had only a minor part. You wore the crown, heavy and unfamiliar, and felt everyone's eyes on you, full of hope or dread or expectation. You stood on marble floors and promised things you barely understood, mouthing words that tasted of dust. They cheered, of course. They always cheer at the beginning. Nobody tells you how quickly the cheering turns to whispers. You look for moments of happiness and find only fragments. A morning hunt, when the mist lay thick on the ground and the dogs ran wild. A feast, where someone's joke made you laugh until you choked on your wine. A stolen hour in the garden, alone, watching a beetle crawl across your hand. Small things, unimportant things, all drowned now in the endless tide of duty and watching and waiting. You try to recall the great deeds you were supposed to accomplish, the wisdom you were supposed to gather. There are none. Your reign is measured in failed petitions, in endless disputes over taxes and grain and border skirmishes you never saw. You remember meetings where you sat in silence while others argued in your name and realized only later that your silence was the only power you truly had. You wonder if anyone, even now, remembers the child you were, the boy beneath the crown. Did you ever truly belong to yourself, or were you always being prepared for some role that nobody could quite define? You look for the line where your own will ends and the will of others begins, but it is lost in the long years of training and expectation. Now, in the silence, the past seems almost fictional, a story you have read too many times to believe. The present is a sequence of aches and small humiliations, a narrowing tunnel with no turning back. The future, such as it is, holds only one certainty. Sometimes you imagine what your life could have been if you had been born outside these walls, a stable boy, a farmer, a monk with a garden and a dog. Would you have lived longer, better, or would you have found another way to waste your days in worry and disappointment? You will never know. There is no other path for you now, only this one, which leads steadily onward to the inevitable end. You do not envy the ones who will follow you, not really. You have seen too much to believe the crown brings anything but more nights like these, long, restless, spent searching for meaning in the ruins of small joys. You wonder if your half brother will lie awake as you do, counting cracks in the ceiling, haunted by the lives he will not live. As dawn creeps in, pale and indifferent, you realize the thing you miss most is possibility. There is no more becoming, no more changing. You are fixed in place, the sum of your days already written, the last chapter being penned in the language of fever and fatigue. The nights go on. You lie awake, listening to the castle breathing around you, and think of all the things you have not done, all the words you never found the courage to speak. The world outside your window is still turning, but for you, time is now just a long night, unbroken and unremarkable, stretching on until the dark gives way to nothing at all. At first, you try to resist. You tell yourself, in the old stories, the hero always recovers at the last moment. Someone arrives with a cure, a long lost remedy, a miracle wrought by faith or by love. Even when the days turn gray and the nights become endless, you search for signs that your body might yet remember how to heal, that you might wake one morning and find the fever gone, the aches vanished, the world returned to its rightful order. But doom, you find, is less like a storm and more like fog. It comes quietly, settling in layers until you are wrapped in it and cannot recall when it began. There is no single moment of surrender, only a slow loosening of your grip, first on hope, then on memory, then on the need for anything but stillness. You become aware that you are no longer waiting for recovery, only for release. You stop asking the physician for news. Stop watching the door for visitors who come with forced smiles and hollow encouragement. You stop caring about the taste of food, the passing of time, the comfort of bedclothes, or the number of cracks in the ceiling. These things belonged to the world of the living. You inhabit a smaller world now, where each breath is both an effort and a relief. The dread that haunted your nights is gone. In its place is a blank acceptance, a quiet that feels almost like rest. The fear of death has ebbed, leaving behind something stranger, a kind of detachment, as if you are watching your own decline from outside your body. You remember the prayers of the priest, the talk of judgment and salvation, but even these seem distant now. You are past the point of reckoning. You no longer weigh your life on scales, no longer measure your worth or wonder what comes next. Your senses dull, and the world loses its edge. The chamber is a blur of shifting light and shadow, the voices around you indistinct, the touch of hands a vague pressure on your skin. Even pain fades, replaced by a heaviness, a sense of sinking. Sometimes you think you are floating above the bed, weightless, watching the rituals of the living with faint amusement. The castle around you moves on. You hear the bells for prayers, the clatter of dishes, the murmur of plans and gossip and ambition. It might as well be happening in another country. Once you cared what would happen to the kingdom when you were gone. Who would sit on your throne? Who would rewrite your story? Now you know it will make no difference. You will be a line in a chronicle, a memory to be summoned when convenient, a portrait to gather dust. In a corridor you have never walked, you have stopped asking why. Why this illness? Why this timing? Why this life? The questions do not matter anymore, and the answers, if there ever were any, are lost to you now. What remains is the slow unwinding of the thread, the steady closing of doors. You are no longer afraid of darkness. Darkness, at least, is honest. In rare moments of clarity, you are surprised to find a certain relief. There is freedom in letting go, in no longer pretending you might recover, in no longer rehearsing words of courage or hope for the sake of those who visit. You find you can smile at your own frailty, at the elaborate fuss made over a body that is almost done with its work. You pity the living with their anxieties, their endless preparations, their desperate clinging to meaning. The priest continues to visit, and you let him. His words are soft, his rituals familiar. You listen because it comforts him and because it fills the silence. You no longer pray for healing or forgiveness. Your prayers are shorter now, wordless, a kind of sigh at the end of each day. Sometimes you wonder if God is listening, but the question is not urgent. The weight of judgment, like everything else, is no longer yours to carry. You begin to dream of sleep, not as an escape, but as a destination, the promise of stillness, of coolness, of rest. You do not imagine angels or flames, rewards or punishments. You imagine only quiet, an end to the struggle, a soft settling of dust. You wonder if you will notice the moment you pass from one world to another, or if it will be as gentle as slipping beneath the surface of water. You hope it is gentle. After so much noise, so much effort, gentleness seems like the greatest mercy. In the final days, you speak less and less. The servants come and go, whispering to one another, careful not to disturb you. The physician checks your pulse and nods gravely. Your family lingers at the edges of your vision, uncertain, already practicing the expressions they will wear at your funeral. You watch them from a great distance, as if through fog. You are neither angry nor afraid. You are simply done. When the end comes, it will be neither a triumph nor a defeat. It will simply be what happens next. And for the first time in your life, you are content to let it happen. The end does not come all at once. There is no grand announcement, no sudden hush, no line of mourners waiting with black veils and glistening eyes. Instead, there is a gradual thinning of the world. Each day, fewer people pass through your chamber, and those who remain grow quieter, more hesitant, as if afraid their words might disturb the slow work of dying. You notice the change first in the servants. The same faces return again and again. The older woman who has overseen your linens since childhood, her hands rough but gentle. The boy who carries water, always glancing at the door as if expecting to be sent away at any moment. They move through your room with practiced care, their eyes lowered, their tasks performed with a reverence usually reserved for altars. You sense their pity, but it no longer stings. Pity, at least, is a kind of honesty. The physician comes less often. Where once he brought a parade of potions and promises, now he limits himself to a daily visit, his bag smaller each time. He asks fewer questions, offers less advice. He checks your pulse, feels your brow, nods gravely. There is nothing left to do but bear witness. You almost prefer it this way. It is a relief to be left alone with your decline, unaccompanied by the constant hum of hope. Your stepmother's visits are briefer too. She sits at your side for a moment, her words gentle but distant. You know she is already busy with arrangements, with alliances, with the delicate dance of succession. She brings you a token, rosary beads, a letter, a pressed flower, but her mind is elsewhere, on the world that will resume with renewed vigor once you are gone. You do not resent her for it. Everyone needs to prepare for the future, even those who are not going to live in it. Your half brother comes, brought in by tutors who hover just beyond the threshold. He stands quietly, his hands folded, his gaze shifting from your face to the window and back again. He does not know what to say. Perhaps he never did. He will remember these visits as a lesson in power, in patience, in the awkward grace of waiting for a door to close so another can open. You almost wish you could comfort him, tell him that the hardest part is not inheriting the crown, but carrying its silence. The priest, ever faithful, remains your most persistent companion. He recites prayers, anoints your brow, murmurs of redemption and release. In these final days, his words become softer, more personal. He speaks of rest, of mercy, of peace. You let him pray, not for yourself, but for the comfort it brings him. The ritual is for the living, after all. You are already halfway to another country. There are others, one or two old friends, if you are fortunate, who linger longer than the rest. Their presence is quieter, more genuine. They speak of shared memories, of harmless gossip, of the world outside these four walls. You are grateful for their company, for the way they let you be a person instead of a patient, even if only for a few minutes at a time. The castle around you moves on, its rhythm unchanged. You hear the echo of footsteps in the corridors, the distant clash of practiced swords in the yard, the rumble of carts in the courtyard. Life, relentless and impartial, carries on just out of reach. It is strangely comforting. You realize that the world does not pause for any one death, not even a king's. The nights are the loneliest and the truest. In the stillness, only the faithful remain, the few whose duty or affection or simply habit keeps them at your side. Sometimes you wake and find the old nurse dozing in a chair, her mouth open, her knitting fallen to the floor. Sometimes the priest keeps vigil, his lips moving silently over his beads. The others are gone, already occupied with the business of tomorrow. You think, with a trace of bitterness and relief, that in the end, death is a private affair. No crowd can share your passing. No court can soften the moment when you slip from memory into myth. The world will remember the ceremony, the succession, the grand words spoken over your body. But these last witnesses, these tired servants, these silent friends, will be the only ones who truly saw you go. You wonder what stories they will tell. Perhaps they will say you were brave or gentle, or at least did not make a fuss. More likely, they will speak of your silence, your tired eyes, the way you seemed to fade long before your heart stopped. You hope, in some quiet corner of the future, that your memory will be kind to them, that your passing will not haunt their sleep or sour their days. In these last hours, you no longer think of crowns or kingdoms, of duty or regret. You think only of the hands that turn your pillow, the voice that whispers comfort in the darkness, the quiet patience of those who remain. It is enough, more than enough. Soon, even they will leave. Soon the world will reclaim your chamber, wash the linens, open the windows, and carry on. You will become a name, a date, a tale told over supper. The last witnesses will find new lives, new loyalties, new mornings. The memory of your passing will dissolve, as all things do, into the soft indifference of time. But for now, you are not alone. When it happens quietly. There is no trumpet, no celestial sign, no sudden outpouring of grief that shakes the walls. There is just the slow, invisible shift from being to not being, a change so gradual and ordinary it almost goes unnoticed. One breath, then another, then none at all. You do not rage, nor do you rejoice. You do not summon your last strength for a speech, or a confession, or a grand gesture. The world does not hold its breath. Even your own does not seem remarkable in the end. It is just one more sigh, lost among so many others. If anyone is in the room, they do not realize the moment at first. The candle sputters, a draft stirs the heavy air, and the silence lengthens. That is all. The priest, if present, murmurs a prayer with a voice already accustomed to such rituals. He closes your eyes, arranges your hands, sprinkles holy water that smells of distant fields and old stone. The last witnesses exchange glances, more relief than sadness in their faces, though they are careful to keep the mask of solemnity in place. There are no tears, only a gentle, weary acceptance that one chapter has ended and another, inevitably, must begin. Word travels quickly through the castle, not on wings of mourning, but with the flat efficiency of duty. The steward receives the news and immediately dispatches runners to the council chambers, to the kitchens, to the stables. There are protocols to observe, processions to arrange, seals to break and affix. The royal bedchamber is no longer yours. It is a site of business now, and the world outside your door resumes its complicated, indifferent choreography. Your stepmother arrives in her mourning veil, flanked by attendants already dressed in black. She surveys the room, the bed, your face, her expression an elaborate embroidery of sorrow, relief, and calculation. She kneels by your side, whispers a prayer, and then signals the waiting maids to begin their work. There is no lingering, no clinging to the past. The future is already crowding in. Your half brother, when he comes, does so under the stern eyes of his tutors. He bows, more out of habit than conviction, and stands stiffly, uncertain what is expected of him. This is his moment, the long rehearsal finally over. Someone guides him from the room with a hand on his shoulder, and he leaves without looking back. You wonder, in some part of yourself not yet faded, if he will remember this hour at all, or if it will become just another shadow in the long corridor of his life. The court gathers, not to grieve, but to witness. They speak in hushed voices of transitions, of legitimacy, of continuity. You are not the subject of their conversation now, but the pretext. The business of kingship, having paused for an instant, lurches forward again. There are documents to sign, oaths to renew, alliances to confirm. There is even, for a moment, laughter in the halls, the brittle laughter of people relieved to have survived another regime. Outside, the day is as indifferent as any other. The sky is gray, the air damp with the promise of more rain. The townspeople will hear the news by sunset, perhaps with a few words of sympathy before returning to their own struggles. In the kitchens, the cooks prepare a funeral feast, more concerned with quantities and timing than with grief. For them, a dead king is merely another event, another reason to work late and rise early. Your body, once so fussed over, becomes another object to be managed. You are washed, dressed, and laid out with a dignity that feels both ceremonial and absurd. The same hands that once brought you broth now adjust your limbs, straighten your hair, close your jaw. They do not speak to you, they do not need to. You are gone, and the living are already rearranging the furniture. The chronicler, when he writes the account, will note your piety, your patience, your suffering. He will say you met your end with courage and dignity, that you were mourned by all. He will not mention the boredom, the humiliation, the smallness of your final hours. He will not write about the stains on the sheets or the dull, repetitive ache that accompanied your last days. History is too dignified for such things. No poets will compose laments for your passing. No statues will be raised in your likeness. Your portrait will hang, eventually, among the other forgotten faces, gathering dust and silence in equal measure. A king, a martyr, a boy who died too soon. Your epitaph will be written by men who never knew you, for an audience who never cared. In the end, your death is like so many others, quiet, ordinary, unremarkable. The castle swallows the sound. The world moves on. You are remembered, if you are remembered at all, not for the way you lived, but for the vacancy you left behind. This, you realize, is all the glory there ever was. They bury you in the manner befitting a king. Candles and incense, processions and psalms, a coffin draped in somber velvet and carried by men who, until yesterday, were careful never to meet your eyes. The priest chants the ancient words, his voice echoing in the cold stone of the chapel, and the court bows their heads, some in genuine prayer, most in the careful choreography of public mourning. The chronicler sits in the back, scribbling furiously, determined to capture the grandeur of the moment and not the awkward silences that preceded it. He will record your piety and patience, the tears shed by your family, the long line of dignitaries who file past your bier. He will not mention the empty seats, the hurried glances exchanged by those already planning for tomorrow. He will write of a beloved king, mourned by all, and the realm's deep sorrow. Paper, after all, is patient and cannot blush. Your funeral is neither chaos nor revelation, but a rite. The castle, so recently filled with the hush of anticipation, comes alive with the bustle of logistics. Where to lay the body, how many torches to light, what food to serve at the mourner's table. The same corridors through which anxious physicians crept now see footmen bearing wreaths and courtiers in black, glancing at each other with sidelong calculation. In the kitchens, someone laughs too loudly. In the stables, horses stamp and whinny, eager for their next journey, uncaring of the cause. Outside, life continues with admirable indifference. The townspeople gather at the gates, peering at the passing cortege, and the bolder ones whisper predictions about the future. The merchants keep their stalls open, counting coins as the procession winds past. For most, your death is another turn in the wheel, fodder for rumor, a reminder that even kings die and life blessedly goes on. In the weeks that follow, your name is invoked with ritual solemnity at council meetings, then with decreasing regularity until it is only mentioned when some matter of succession or inheritance is at stake. The priest includes you in his prayers, at first with fervor, then as an afterthought. The castle's walls are scrubbed, your chamber aired, your linens burned or given away. The world, you see, is quick to fill a vacancy. Your stepmother moves on with admirable poise, wearing her widow's black for the appropriate interval, then gradually adopting the colors of power once more. Your half brother, at first dazed and silent, quickly learns to occupy the space you left behind, his voice growing firmer, his shoulders squaring to the weight of expectation. The courtiers adapt as they always do, pivoting, promising, reshuffling allegiances with the agility of dancers who have practiced this step 100 times. And what of you, Edward, king and martyr, whose slow, undramatic death unfolded behind closed doors? For a time, you are a story told at supper, a warning to those who reach too eagerly for the crown. Some say you were gentle, others that you were weak, a few that you were simply unlucky. Children grow up hearing your name among the list of monarchs who did not last, and even they mix you up with others. Edward the Martyr, Edward the Confessor, Edward the Something. You become a footnote, a lesson, a shadow among shadows. The chronicler's ink fades, and with it, the details of your decline, the endless fevers, the sleepless nights, the taste of stale bread and bitter wine, the endless parade of hopeful physicians and watchful courtiers. No one writes about the boredom, the crawling ache, the humiliation of needing to be turned in your own bed. These things are not for the ages. They are for the moment, and the moment, mercifully, does not last. Years pass, and your memory drifts through the castle like a draft, felt by some, unnoticed by most. A portrait darkens on the wall, its features blurred by candle smoke and neglect. A name carved into stone is worn smooth by the passage of feet, by the indifference of time. Once or twice, someone pauses to ask, which Edward was that? But the answer is rarely satisfying. There are no miracles, no tales of sainthood or haunting. The relics attributed to you are lost, traded, or quietly dismissed by later priests. The only ghosts are those invented by poets long after everyone who knew you is dust. What remains is the land, the castle, the unbroken rhythm of dawn and dusk, feast and famine, death and succession. You are remembered, if you are remembered at all, in the pauses between greater stories, not for how you lived, nor for how you died, but for the fact that once a king was here, and now he is gone. And so the world sleeps, as you do, quietly and without regret. Another name, another king, another boring history for sleep.